Welcome to Dr. T's Cookbook of Awesomeness. Today, we are making biscuits and sausage gravy. So bust out that cast iron and let's cook something awesome. Here's our ingredients for the biscuits, starting off with 4 cups of all-purpose flour. Then we have 4 teaspoons of baking powder. We're just gonna shove that right in there. We're gonna follow that with 1 teaspoon of baking soda. And after we dump that in there, our last dry ingredient is 1 1/4 teaspoons of kosher salt. We're just gonna give that a quick whisk with the fork to make sure everything is combined. Now we're gonna pour in 1 3/4 cups of buttermilk. And unfortunately, I forgot to add the butter. So let's get that butter in there now. We need 1 1/2 sticks of frozen butter, which we're going to grate on this cheese grater. And as you can tell, this is a real pain in the ass, so maybe don't do it. I gave up. It wasn't worth it. I just ended up with a very well lubricated right hand. Like, seriously, you can see my frustration here. Really frustrating. So I gave up and I just went to a good old knife and decided to cut these into small cubes. Now the idea of grating the butter is so that it can get better incorporated more evenly and consistently within your mixture. But you know what, I ain't got time for that. If you do, well, good for you. Now that our butter's all cubed up, we're just gonna give this a nice stir to get everything incorporated. Now it might seem that your batter here, your dough, is just a little dry, and I thought so too. But with a little help from Mrs. T, she told me that everything was alright, that I just needed to get it kneaded by hand and then it would all come together. And as you can see here, it's kind of still pretty dry and kind of falling apart, but with a minute or two here of working it by hand, it came together quite nicely actually. Now you don't want to overwork this dough, so I'm just kneading it just a little bit just to make sure that everything's incorporated evenly, and I'm kind of folding it over on itself to create a few layers so that when it bakes you get those kind of flaky layers throughout. Now, I will be honest here, baking is not my forte. I usually leave that up to Mrs. T, and as you can tell here, I needed a little help to make this work out. So with a little direction, I was able to get this dough into a roughly square shape, sort of, and roughly even. Now you want it to be of even thickness to make sure all your biscuits end up being the same size, but I guess even if they're not the same size, they still taste the same, right? Now I'm going to use my bench scraper to cut this into 9 roughly equal parts, or unequal parts. I really suck at this. And here's some awkward hand motions to show you I've finished. I preheated this cast iron skillet on the stovetop and added just a little bit of canola oil and about a tablespoon of butter, and I swished it around to evenly coat the bottom. And now, like a game of Tetris, I'm going to place these awkwardly shaped pieces of dough into the pan and try to make them all fit. Come on, you can do this. You can do this. You're on camera. Come on. Yep. Just move it over. Squeeze it in there. Okay. Little turn. Little turn. Move that down. That over. Yep. And oh, we did it. We did it. Oh, success. Woo. Awkward hand motions. And into the oven at 450 for about 16 minutes. Now let's make our gravy. We'll start by preheating this cast iron skillet. We're gonna have a little canola oil and a big pat of butter. After about, 3 minutes or so, your skillet should be hot enough to start cooking. We wanna get a good sear on this meat, so it's important to preheat the cast iron. This is some buttermilk sausage. My uncle actually made this. And it's been sitting in the back of my freezer for a while, a long while. So we're just gonna break this up into little pieces and get it going in the skillet. I like to leave it here for actually several minutes before disturbing it. That allows it time to really brown on that bottom side before we start disturbing it. While we're waiting for it to brown on the bottom and get that nice Maillard reaction and crusty bits in the bottom, we're going to season with a little bit of pepper. We don't need to season with salt because this sausage is actually already quite salty. Okay, now we're just going to scrape it up off the bottom. This pan is actually pretty non-stick, so it doesn't take much to lift it up. And we're just going to break up the bigger bits and swish it around to make sure that it gets browned all over. Eventually, your sausage should look like this. It's thoroughly cooked and we've got a lot of brown bits. Now we're going to actually make a roux by adding some flour. That flour is going to combine with the fat in the pan. So we've got the fat from the meat, we've got some butter, a little bit of canola oil, and so we're adding just enough flour to soak up that fat. This creates a roux. We don't want to add in too much, otherwise our sauce will get a little too thick and gummy. Instead, just enough to soak up that fat. And then we want to cook it for a minute or two. It's important to cook the flour in the roux so that you don't have that floury taste in your finished sauce, or in this case, gravy. So let it cook for 1 to 2 minutes. Once the flour's had a chance to cook out, we're going to add our whole milk. We're going to start off with maybe about a cup, a little bit more, and then we'll add more liquid as this starts to thicken up. We don't want to add too much liquid at the start and make our gravy too thin, so it's easier to add a little bit and then loosen it up with more milk as we go along. As you can see, I'm using my spatula to kind of scrape up the little bits that might have been stuck in the bottom, that fond that adds a lot of flavor to our gravy. So as you can see, it's already starting to thicken up. The heat plus the roux and the milk brings everything together. To season, I'm adding some seasoned salt, about a teaspoon. In addition to the seasoned salt, our other seasoning is freshly ground black pepper, and a lot of it. I like it really peppery. More and more and more pepper, and then a little bit more, and that's good. And now, as you can see, this is getting really thick, so we'll start adding a little bit more whole milk, little by little, to get the right consistency. Okay, our sausage gravy is done. check out how that looks. I like it a little on the thicker side so that sticks really well to the biscuits. And speaking of biscuits, here they are. They've puffed up nicely. You can see that they've got some flaky layers. And I'm just gonna plate it up here. Oh, they're super hot. Let me get a spatula. They come right out that nicely seasoned cast iron. And check out the bottom here. Nice and golden brown. Nice little crispy bottom. It's gonna be really, really nice texture. Now let's go over and plate up some of that gravy. This stuff just sticks to your bones. It's so good. See, it's even thickened up just a little bit more as it's been cooling. I'm just gonna spoon this over the top. And this is gonna be really great with some eggs. I love some over easy eggs to throw on top. Then you bust those runny yolks over the top of the gravy and your biscuits, and it's just a big messy slurry. Oh, it's so good. Whew, let's take a look at this, ladies and gentlemen. Let's let this focus in here. You can see the nice big chunks of pork sausage. You've got all that pepper. See all that pepper throughout there? Oh. And it sticks to those biscuits. It doesn't just run all over the plate. It stays on those biscuits. Now let's take a bite. Take a look at that bite, and I'm gonna shove it in my mouth. It's good. Oh. Yeah, let's get some more of that. Ooh, get that sausage. Oh, peppery goodness. And in it goes. Whew. Now seriously, folks, this is some good stuff, some good eats, and I hope you give it a try. So, if you found value in watching me shove my face full of food, please like, subscribe, and comment.